All right, so we're back on our morning energy. This is day 3 of waking up early, making it sound like such a hard thing to do. It's about 7. I woke up at 6:30. I will say today's the first day in 3 days I did meditation. I have the meditation app waking up, and I needed that. Like, I could tell the difference in my reactivity to life when I didn't do meditation. Anyway, today we're gonna run a 5K on this trail. I haven't ran in a while. I need a rest day. I need a rest day from lifting, so this is going to be considered like an active rest day. Make sure this thing's following me. Okay. I'm going to run a 5K while recording myself. You know, they say that when you run, you should be able to talk to somebody. Like, that's like the pace you should be running at. So I don't even know if that's possible with me running a 5K, given that I don't run. What's cool about where I live in this trail is if I run all the way to the very end of this path and back, that's almost exactly a 5K. So yesterday, someone reached out to me on Instagram and was like, "Hey bro, I noticed in your cold water videos, you're looking pretty ripped, pretty lean, in shape. Like, what are you doing? Can you share? Can you tell me what's going on?" He's like, "How are you in shape like that? Are you doing a kind of exercise program?" And when I first responded to him, I thought about it. And my first response to him was like, "Oh yeah, bro, I'm just eating real clean, working out." And it's true. I'm doing those things. But after like an hour after I sent that, he's like, "Oh, thank you." I realized that's not the real reason why. I've had people ask me these questions before, questions like this. Like, another one I get is like, "Hey, I notice you're happy. Why are you happy?" And again, my first response was like, "Oh, it's because I do cold water and I meditate." And it's like, no, those are things that you do that help to your happiness, but that's not why you're happy. You need to double click on that and go one layer lower. The reason I'm happy, by the way, I determined, is because I received unconditional love as a child. And that makes me resilient today. As there's like a scientific link between how much love you received as a child and how resilient you are as an adult. And there's something about that unconditional love that allows me to have that for myself and for others. That's why I'm happy. And there's a one level layer deeper answer to why I'm in shape the way I'm in. The real reason is because I stopped drinking alcohol. You know, as it relates to health and fitness, they say that you should try to find the one decision that removes 100 decisions. And drinking alcohol is a great example of one of those decisions. Think about it. If you make the one decision of saying, "I'm not going to drink alcohol," think about how many hundreds of decisions it already automatically makes for you in your life. If your friend's like, you know, "Hey, well, one example, do you want to drink at the bar?" "No, thank you." "What am I going to do this weekend?" Not the activity of actively drinking. It may be hanging out with people who drink if you decide to, but it's not drinking. And that makes a lot of other decisions for you, especially when it comes to health and fitness. Because drinking, really, I feel like working out while drinking, you're kind of just fighting to maintain. Or the gains are a lot slower. And you can just tell right away, someone who drinks, someone who doesn't. I feel like you can almost see it in their eyes. I mean, their face is brighter. Really, yeah, I mean, you can tell by looking at someone the lifestyle they live, if they're hunched over on their phone all day, or if they're dialed in, working out, if they have a balance. And drinking, I feel like, is one of those things where it's like, it shows the most. Unfortunately, look, you have to realize, like, my health is part of the reason I stopped drinking, but that's not the only reason. And I don't even know if it's the biggest one, honestly, because drinking in moderation could still be okay for your health. I mean, I remember watching a YouTube video that interviewed all these people over 100 years old. Like half of them were having like a glass of whiskey. All of them were still drinking alcohol in some form or fashion, including this one dude who was just his glass of whiskey every day. So it's not that it's like inherently bad for your health in moderation, of course. By the way, I can't see what's recording. If the framing on this whole video is absolute dog water, I apologize to you, viewer, in advance for figuring it out. You know, the more I reflect on why I stopped drinking, the more reasons over time that I realize are the why. Because a lot of people, when they stop drinking, or when you like think of someone that's not drinking, and maybe this is from like movies or what, I don't know. A lot of times you'll think about the person who's like, this is my last drink of alcohol, and they just never drink again. And for me personally, that wasn't my story. That's not how it worked out. There wasn't a time where it was like, this will be my last time drinking. It really happened gradually over about 2 years, I'd say. Now, if you first asked me if I can't think of to one distinct moment that really led me to not drinking anymore, and that was in my job when I got my first performance rating at work. It was lower. And it was such a wake-up call for me because I always thought that, you know, I was at a stage in my life. Now I'm out of college, out of grad school, and it's like, all right, I can continue this drinking lifestyle. It's not gonna, you know, that doesn't affect me. And then when I got my lower at work, it's like, okay, I'm out here in Houston by myself. If I lose my job, and I knew that I was drinking the way I was, my priorities were backwards, and I failed myself personally. And also in my job, I was like the youngest person. So I had this very unique perspective that stems from the diversity of age, where everyone else in my life was above me, where I wanted to be, and living great stories. And it's that living great story piece that I'm starting to connect the dot on why I genuinely am able to not drink anymore and not want to. Because when it comes to your lower performance rating at work, if that's the only reason you're not drinking is because, oh, to make money, I need to refocus on making a monthly salary. If you were to win the lottery, you're gonna be like that garbage guy who won the lottery, spent it all on a fast lifestyle, to say the least, and then went right back to being a garbage guy. The real reason is because all these people at my work were living lives that I wanted to live. And I kind of had to zoom out and look at the life I was living, and it was like, okay, I can keep drinking, but I think at first I started to realize the trade-off, because alcohol is probably, I mean, it's a drug, but it's one of the only socially acceptable activities that when you do it, if I were to commit to you an hour, you and I are going to go drinking, it's not just that hour that's the opportunity crossed, because then you're drunk after that, so you can't be clear-minded if you want to fully apply yourself to anything else. But, you know, more often than not, you have 3 to 5 drinks, and you'll be a little bit hungover, and you now need to spend the next day recovering. And even if you're someone who doesn't get hungover, we have more and more research that shows that even drinking 1 day a week impacts your memory and your ability to learn new things and store that in your long-term memory over the next week. There's a really good Andrew Huberman podcast on drinking that goes over some of these studies on the impacts of even having a few drinks or even one drink of alcohol. I was able to gain this perspective on drinking by really zooming out in my life. There's a there's a thought exercise called the bug book. And the bug book is you put yourself in a book and talk as if you were a bug, and then make scientific observations about yourself. For example, if I were to do that, it would be like, you have to use these phrasing. It's like, the bug Kenny is going on a run right now. The bug Kenny has been working on his YouTube videos. The bug Kenny has been doing senseless scrolling 15 hours a week on his phone, and it's not good for him. And when you start to take this perspective of your life in the viewpoint of someone else, you can kind of view the bigger story. And when I looked at the story of the life I was living when drinking alcohol, there became a point that I realized it was no longer a great story. I mean, you look at human history and you think about all the humans who like kind of just ended their life at the bar. That was kind of what they did in life. At the end of the day, what they really were doing was making a monthly salary and going to the bar in their free time. You know, they say there's 3 addictions in the world that are the most dangerous: alcohol, heroin, and a monthly salary. And when I look at the way I was living, my life was doing actively 2 out of 3 of those most dangerous addictions. It's almost like those memes where it's like, you know, it's like some dude at the club just standing in the corner, and it's like he was waiting his whole week to go to the club, and now he just stands in the corner, and then after he'll be like, my life was a movie. And it's like, yeah, the reason he's doing that is because he's getting drunk. In his own head, he's like going crazy. But when you zoom out, anyone sober that were to see you, no matter what you're doing, it's shambles. Now, I don't want to discount all of the fun times I had with friends. It was the camaraderie piece that really kept me going. I mean, I only drank with other people and used it as a way to bond. But when I realized that me and these other people were doing this activity that has caused a lot of them to become alcoholics, dependent, not make progress in life, show up as worse brothers, sisters, children, parents in their life. I mean, it was an activity that hurt everyone else around us that was doing the drinking. It was like I was leading people in drinking alcohol. I was throwing parties. I was the leader of the group. In a way, you know, leading type energy of what we're going to do for the night. And it was selfish because I was leading everyone to do something that made them a worse person. It was totally contradictory to the gains. And if you play that story out, look, it was fun when you're in college or before, where kind of the whole world is almost set up in a way so that you can have fun while drinking. That's cool. But it is true, once you get out of that bubble, you realize, like, even in a perfect world where it was set up for you to have fun while drinking, at the end of the day, you're just making that bar more money, and you're spending all of your life energy doing what? Nothing innovative, I'll tell you that. Nothing that your great grandma would not be happy with. And I'll tell you this, my great grandma, I'm blessed as of right now. She's still alive. And I'm so blessed every day, and having this perspective is really unique. All right, we're at the halfway point. I'm now doing my lap. We're in front of a retirement folks home. Shout out to all the old folks. I was hoping that I'll be outside having a party. I mean, it is sub 8 a.m. But isn't that what old people do? Is they're not drinking like me, so they can now be outside. What's going on, old folks home? Y'all gotta step it up. I'll tell you this, if I'm at that old folks home, you best believe I am walking my way out, and I'm living life. I'm living a totally different story, not drinking alcohol, but it's really a better one. I mean, I think one reason, first off, you have to have all these realizations. You know, I think one thing that made it easy for me to quit is I realized that the reason I drank alcohol is because I was always chasing like a good life. I was always chasing an exciting story. And alcohol was the way to connect with others. And connecting with others was the way that you lived a great life. And it was easy. And I didn't see anything wrong with it. Once I realized that at a certain point in life, if you keep drinking, it's no longer a great story. Now, I remember in college, you would see like alumni visit, and you would see those like alumni at the bar. And there was always like a few like older dudes, and it always just creeped me out. It was like, I never want to be the old guy at the bar. And once you realize that like, you're going to become that old guy at the bar, it was no longer a great story. And because that was my why behind drinking, it was like, all right, I don't know how. I don't even know if there is a life to live with not drinking. Like, to me, drinking was the coolest thing you could do because it led to the craziest experiences. I think first I had to take the view that the craziest experience actually isn't the best story. Because you start to realize that those crazy experiences are often crazy because you're risking your life doing something that's like against status quo. And it's like, that may be like cheap, funny, whatever, but when you triple click on that, it's actually kind of sad of why you'd be doing that. So there was that realization that the craziest life is not the best life worth living. So then you get to that point where it's like, all right, I decided I'm not going to drink. Now what? And that is really the hardest part, is finding out that now what. And I will say, it took me a long time to find that now what, but the reason I was able to find what else to do, I think, is because I put so many years in of training, of working on my curiosity and expanding my curiosity and trying new things. You know, one way you can do this is by taking yourself on an artist date. This is a concept from The Artist Way. I didn't think I'd be quoting this book, but The Artist Way has a concept called artist dates. And it's where you spend one day a week taking yourself on an artist date, which means it's only you, no pets, no grandchildren. No, it's just you. And you dedicate this time to treating yourself, and you do things that are out of your comfort zone, and things that inspire you, and things that are new. And if you dedicate one day a week to doing something like that, you'll work on expanding your curiosity. And because I have the reps in of expanding my curiosity, once I stopped drinking, I was lucky enough to have the resources around me. For example, the jiu-jitsu gym I currently go to, it's like, all right, I heard this is a good community, I'll try that out. And you have to understand that you're now playing the long game. Because in the short run, you win with drinking. That one experience, you'll win. And how you feel in your memory of that experience, even if you are making yourself more drunk, you're gonna win that experience in your head of, that was a crazy point in my life. But in the long run, you lose. But in the long run, you lose. And that's what you realize being on the other side of not drinking, is you're now taking a long-term approach. And at the end of the day, if I have to choose between this short run, which is the way I was living my life, and this long run, I'd rather take the long run. But to do that, you not only have to believe in yourself, you have to believe in the impact you can make in the long run. And that's hard to do because you have nothing to base it off of. But if I were to look at my life at 10 years old and be like, this is as good as it gets, this is all you have in life, I would have never even imagined at 10 years old what life experiences I had from the in the next 10 years, from 10 to 20. I could have never guessed. And I'm taking that same bet when I decide not to drink and prioritize these long-term experiences. And I'm hoping this is a decision that my future grandchildren will thank me, because maybe I get to experience one more generation of kids in my life. That to me sounds cool. To me sounds more meaningful than going to the bar. When you're in that stage of, I'm no longer drinking, I'm trying to find new things, but life seems boring. Life seems empty. Keep going, but when you keep going, it's important to keep trying new things, because it's the trying new things that is the only way you're gonna find something that replaces it and find that new community. If you keep putting yourself in old circumstances with old friends, you're gonna 100% want to return back to drinking, because you're in the same environment doing the same thing. You're doing drinking activities and not drinking. And so you really do have to get out of your comfort zone. And essentially what you're doing really when you zoom out is you're killing your old life. You're killing your old self. Look, you're not defined by it, but you're slowly building a new life. And you know, a lot of people, they go so far down one life path, that's how they see themselves. And you really have to love yourself and understand that you're more than your experiences and your ideas to choose, I'm gonna start undoing that life path that I went down and choose a new one. And I'll tell you what, when you do go far enough down a new life path, and again, not drinking is not necessarily creating a new life path if you're not doing anything new. But when you do start living a new life and doing new things that you've never done, living in a whole different way, not only are you more well-rounded because you already have the experience of one life that you lived, it's almost like living a second life, and you have that experience in everything that you do, but you're gonna reinvigorate yourself and reinvigorate your energy for this new life, and now have this mindset of, man, I hope I live long enough to live out this new life fully and live this life out. And it's that re-stirring of your cup that really reinvigorates you, because you have a whole new life experience that you want to live. In terms of my first reactions on people in the morning, I think what I'm getting is everyone is just super confused of why I'm running with the camera in my hands. I've only gotten a few good mornings, and most people just stare at this camera setup I'm running with, and they're like, what are you doing? But hey, you gotta see the bigger picture. And you might look at me and be like, oh, he's just running with a camera in his hand. He's just talking. You know, who cares about why he's running? But I know, and it's why I'm able to talk in public and do this running, is that this is really for a bigger purpose than what you see right here. You know, what I do right now, you just see me talking to nobody. But when this gets uploaded, it has a bigger impact. And that's almost the same mindset you need when drinking is, look, in the short term, it might not make sense. In the long run, when you start to take yourself on those artist dates, do new things that you're curious about, that inspire you, you're gonna build a whole new life story that's gonna make yourself excited to live more life. And then you get the benefit of also looking a lot healthier, and you ask people, hey man, what have you been doing differently? Because you look healthy. It's up to you if you want to share on your journey. Oh, it's because I've been working out. Well, it's like, that's not the real reason. The reason I've been working out is because I'm now no longer drinking, and I'm filling that hole in my life with something new. You know, when you remove something out of your life, you have to fill it up with something else, or else you're gonna return back to that behavior. So put in reps of trying new things to fill your cup. I'll give you one tip for something to do if you are looking for new things to do on your artist date. So they say when you go to a statue to always read the plaque, because the person's life story or meaning behind the art piece is actually more interesting. And when I think about if I was a statue, what would my plaque say? And the life I was living when drinking, that plaque doesn't have that much behind it other than he was a good person, he was a kind soul, he was a good guy. And what I'm trying to do by no longer drinking is build up my story and live a great story on the plaque. And by trying new things and living this new life, it's really reinvigorating my passion for life, to try new things. And I hope that I get to live long enough to do these new things, to live this new life. And what that plaque will say is now driven by meaning. I think about the people that gave their lives for their loved ones. That's such a meaningful thing. What can I do that's as meaningful as that? I don't think it necessarily has to be fighting in war. I think there's new opportunities today, and I'm looking for those. And I don't know what that is yet, but I'm confident that I will find something that's as meaningful as giving your life to the people that you love. I'm just blessed that I get to choose how I do that, because a lot of these people were drafted into the war. How blessed am I to have the freedom to be able to choose how I want to give back to my loved ones? And I'm betting on this search for that new life of meaning, even though at times I get lost and I don't have that answer. I'm betting on that I will find it, and it will be even more meaningful because it'll be a way that I express my love to others in my own unique way, a path that only I can go down because of the life that I lived. Back to the 5K. You know, it's funny because when you're drinking alcohol, you look at people who don't drink alcohol, and it's like, oh, why aren't you drinking? Like, look at how much fun we're having. The side of the story you don't see is all those people who aren't drinking alcohol are the ones who are living life out this next day, getting to it. These people walking around, and they could equally be like, where are you at? While you're in bed trying to recover from drinking, not getting to it. You know, they have that equal side of the story that I guess it's a perspective that I never saw because I was always the one drinking, judging other people. Little did I know the whole time they were making moves while I was sleeping the next day. I do hope that with a new generation, we do start to normalize filming in public, and it just becomes more normalized because it is so powerful. Speaking of new generations, this whole new generation mindset on drinking, I think is different. And I don't know if it's because of the people I'm surrounding myself with, but it's seeming like the generation below me is not as interested in drinking. And I don't know if because that's they're living a life that's more and this connected global consciousness, which is the internet, and it's starting to come out as the truth of like drinking is something that your parents did, and all of your, I don't know if the new generation's realizing that all of their problems in their life a lot of times stem from their parents drinking and drinking habit, and if that's a disinterest in drinking alcohol. It also makes me wonder, is that it? Is it just the people I'm hanging around? Or is it something where it's one of these things where it skips every other generation because one generation has great parents, so then they have a great life where they're allowed to drink, and then they're drinking, and then they become not great parents, and then it's just a repeating cycle. I hope what it really is the interconnectedness of human consciousness through the internet is revealing more positive truths of what an actual great story worth living is like, and drinking alcohol counterintuitively is not a part of that life. And on the note of wondering, is it just the people I'm hanging out around? I guess the one thing I didn't acknowledge is another reason I was able to stop drinking is because I moved myself across the country to a place from Chicago to Texas to Houston where I knew nobody. And although that was hard, it also allowed me the opportunity to not surround myself with people who normalize drinking and drinking is one of those things where people can easily make it seem like you're the one in the wrong if you're not drinking. Like you're crazy. And I'm at a place now where I don't have any of the weight. Being around people, if you normally drink and you're not now, there's gonna be a weight carrying between you and them until you acknowledge with them the why you're not drinking, and they have to fully understand you. And it's hard for people to fully understand you when they're still drinking. Because if they're still drinking and you used to drink with them and you now made this growth and journey, it's almost like back on them to understand that you've made growth that they haven't. And they're not going to realize it, because if they did, they'd probably be also interested and curious and not drinking with you. Now that I look at it, I had all the cards stacked perfectly in my favor to stop drinking. Put myself in a new environment, put myself in a good job, put myself in a new community, which is jiu-jitsu, where drinking isn't the thing to do. And I don't know if it was me that did that, I put myself in that situation, or if I got lucky, because when I look at it, I moved to Houston before I stopped drinking. So maybe I got lucky that this ended up becoming the perfect environment to not do it, but maybe it was like subconsciously intentional. Maybe the first time I moved to Houston, I felt the lightness in the air of not being bogged down by an old lifestyle that supports the old life and not the person I was trying to become. And maybe it was just that little gut feeling when I entered a situation that was more fitting to who I'm trying to become, that was like, this is interesting, I'll move here. And it's not until years later that I realized it would lead me to this path of not drinking. The 5K is done. The talking pace was great. I'll have to look at what time that was. It was probably a really long 5K, but that's okay. The goal is to do it consistently. It's not the person who goes the fastest in one run. It's the person who runs the most over the long haul. I'm gonna keep saying that. That's zone 2 training. Look up that philosophy. It changed the way I live. Ultimately, keep following your gut. Those little sparks of interest that make you feel alive, follow that one by one. Take yourself on artist dates and keep turning the page to a better story.